Many folks would like a gravel bike that can do double duty as a road bike, but which are the best gravel bikes for this? What factors do you need to consider in terms of geometry and gearing and swapping out of wheels and tires? And what bikes are bad for this scenario? In this video, I will give you all of those things. Also, I'll give you another type of answer. Perhaps we're asking this question incorrectly. Maybe it should be, what is the best endurance or all-road bike that can do double duty as a gravel bike? And lastly, I speak to Brennan Wertz, who just won the USA Cycling National Gravel Championships up in Nebraska on an all-road bike. I talked to Brennan about his Mosaic that he's ridden and raced all over the world, what he likes about it, and what the limitations of an all-road bike as a gravel bike can be. This video, like all the videos I've done this year, is supported in part by the good folks at Silca, who have a couple new chip enhancements you can put into the wax pot. If you are one of the chain waxers out there, there is a new speed chip, which, as the name implies, makes the chain even faster than before. And then there's the endurance chip, which can make your waxing last a bit longer. You can click the description below for further descriptions on these and discounts if you like. One thing I'd suggest you do is look at the geometry chart and look at the head tube angle. And if it's 72 or steeper, that is a bike that I think will handle well as a road bike. Bottom bracket drop, that refers to where the center of the bottom bracket sits in relation to the wheel hubs. The lower it gets, the more stable the bike feels, but the lower it gets when you switch over to a road bike, the more likelihood you have of striking a pedal in a quarter. So road bikes are often a 70 mil drop, and some gravel bikes are more than 80. So I'd advise staying on the shallower end, because in addition to the bottom bracket drop, when you switch from a bigger gravel tire to a smaller road tire, you're going to be sitting a little bit closer to the ground. So bottom bracket drop is another thing to watch out for, but head tube angle really is the main thing I feel for a gravel bike that will still feel like a relatively nimble road bike. Gearing is another thing to watch out for. Personally, I prefer a 2x on the road, and if you look at road bikes around the world, 1x is quite rare, and for good reason, because we like to have a wider range and we like to have small jumps between each gear. A couple things there to keep in mind. One, if you have a 1x gravel bike, or you're looking at a 1x gravel bike, going with a larger range cassette. SRAM has a 1052 and a 1050. Shimano also has a 1051 now. That will give you the most options as far as going up and down and being able to pedal in both scenarios, but you're just going to have bigger jumps than you would a 2x. So that leads me to another piece, is your orientation. If you're more of a mountain biker versus more of a roadie. Mountain bikers, this is generally stereotyping, broad brush strokes here, but mountain bikers are typically less fussy about the cadence, and so having 1x with a big range and bigger jumps will be less of an issue than perhaps for roadies who are accustomed to having fine-tuning on the shifting. But regardless of how you get there, you want to have enough gearing for the job at hand. And typically gravel gearing is a little bit lower because you're encountering more resistance than you are on the road. So that can be a thing to keep in mind, that gravel bike gearing, if it's on the smaller side, can get spun out if you're on the road, particularly if you're doing group rides. Where you live and how you like to ride, that is the answer or a sub-answer to many questions. Often a question I get is, what's the best gravel bike? What's the best gravel tire? What's the best gearing? And all of that is, it depends, right? It depends on what you like to do. And if you're looking to ride some super rowdy gravel terrain, like borderline mountain bike terrain, then you definitely want a bike with plenty of tire clearance. And the bigger and the chunkier that gravel bike gets, the less ideal it will be for the road. That also features into the gearing. If you live in Florida, where the biggest mountains in the area are interstate overpasses, then you can probably get away with a smaller range of gearing than you would if you lived in, say, here in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, where we've got a lot of elevation. Now let's talk about switching configurations from your gravel setup to your road setup. There's a number of different ways to do this. The simplest is just having one setup that you use for everything. And for that, I'd recommend a tire that's got a slick center tread, something like a Specialized Pathfinder or Bontrager or Girona. There's a lot of different options out there from various tire brands. Idea being you've got less rolling resistance when riding in a straight line, but then you've still got some bite in the shoulder knobs for when turning. That one bike to rule them all, one setup to rule them all is a strategy employed by many folks. It's never going to be highly specialized for any one scenario, but as far as just being able to grab your bike and go, that is the easiest way to go about it. Another option is to swap tires. This is more of like a seasonal thing. I would not want to be swapping tires, back and forth between rides. It's a mess and a bit of a pain, right? Probably a half-hour process, maybe 10 minutes if you're super fast about it, but that is one way, is swapping tires. A better way, which is still cheaper than buying two bikes, is just having a second set of wheels where you've got one setup with road tires and one setup with gravel tires. You can also have rotors on both sets of wheels and a cassette on both rear wheels, so you can just do a simple swap. That's the fastest. That's also the most expensive in this area. You can go back and forth with one set of rotors and one cassette, and you'll just need to have a couple tools. I would demonstrate, but my shoulder's still coming back from being busted. But you'll need a couple tools to do that. Chain pliers, which I love from Feedback, and then your lock ring tool for both the cassette and then for the rotors. That adds a bit of time, but is certainly a better solution than just swapping tires back and forth, in my humble opinion. Gravel bikes, I would recommend to do double duty as road bikes. Again, going back to that head tube angle, I like bikes with a 72 or steeper head angle for this operation. I also like bikes with a 2x because I like that gear range. The Cervelo Aspero, I think, is a great option. The Specialized Crux, also a good option. And how the thing looks, I should have mentioned this at the top. How the thing looks, I think, is important. Having a super adventure-y gravel bike with mounts everywhere and clearance for fat bike tires and fenders and racks and everything may look a little weird when you put on some road wheels and road tires. Certainly can work, but if you want something to look cool in both scenarios, that's something where like a racier gravel bike will probably be a better solution than a more adventure-y gravel bike. Bikes I would not recommend for you to use as a dual-purpose gravel road. Those bigger, slacker adventure gravel bikes, the YT Scepter, for instance, the Santa Cruz Stigmata, the BMC Urs, all are great bikes, but those are specialized for rowdier, chunkier gravel and do not feel great on the road if you're trying to achieve something like a road bike feel. Again, the head tube angle is the simplest way to just at a glance differentiate. And the YT is below 70 degrees. So if it's super slack, not so nice for a dual purpose gravel road bike. Now let's look at this another way. Instead of asking what the best gravel bike is to act as a road bike, how about what's the best road bike that can also treat you well on the gravel? And there is a slew of new school all-road bikes that I feel fit the bill quite nicely. Here, instead of looking at head tube angle, look at tire clearance, because that is a key differentiator between an old school road bike when you're running like a 23 mil tire and a current gravel bike where 40 mil is still the norm. Tires are getting bigger, but a 40 mil tire is straight up the middle for gravel cycling, and 40 mil of clearance is what bikes like the Specialized Roubaix have, the BMC Road Machine. Then there are some other bikes that are close, like this Vamoots 33, which has 38 mil of clearance, or the Lauf Utold, which has 35 mil of clearance. A bike I really enjoyed riding recently is the new Envy Fray. There's the Envy Melee, which is the road race bike. There's the Mog, the gravel bike that takes up to 50 mil. And then the Envy Fray is that Goldilocks bike, 40 mil of clearance. Feels great on the road, plenty lively and stiff in terms of power transmission, but can take a chunky 40 mil tire. And for most places, that's good and plenty. Again, this comes back to where you live and what type of roads and trails are available to you. One common comment I hear from some of you is that, well, there's no gravel near where I am. It's either road or single track trail. And if the trails are so chunky that a mountain bike seems like the better thing, then perhaps a mountain bike is the better thing. And having a road bike for the road is the way to go. If you live in an area like I do where you've got a lot of dirt roads, then it's a lot easier to get by with a road bike that can double dip as a gravel, especially if it's this new school type of all-road bikes where you can get 38 or 40 mil of tire clearance. For another perspective on this, let's go talk to the big dog, Brennan Wertz, who just won USA Cycling's Gravel National Championships.
Brennan Wertz, great to see you, sir. Congratulations on your national championship. How are you and where in the world are you?
Thank you, Ben. I'm in Girona, Spain. I just got here a couple of days ago and will be in Europe for the next 3 weeks.
Gonna be doing some UCI gravel racing over there, yes?
Yeah, there's one here on Saturday that I'll do, part of the Sea Otter Europe Festival, and then I'll actually go and watch the Road Worlds in Zurich. I have some friends in the race, and then from there I'll go to Belgium for the Gravel Worlds.
Nice. Well, good luck to you in all of that. I want to pick your brain on bike choice, because you won Gravel Nationals in Gary, Nebraska on an all-road bike, the Mosaic GTI AR. Am I saying that correctly? GT1 IAR?
GT1 IAR, yes.
Yeah.
Bit of an mouthful.
With road cranks, big monster gearing. Why an all-road bike for a gravel race, and how often are you on that versus Mosaic's dedicated gravel bike?
It's probably, I would say it's the bike that I love the most, but race the least. It has a very specific use case, and it does have, I would say it has like a few, namely one key limitation, and that's just tire clearance and mud clearance. So like if you get into any sort of peanut butter mud or anything like that, you definitely just run the risk of clogging it up and the wheels stopping turning. I ran into that last year at Gravel Worlds in Nebraska. I ran into some mud and quickly found the limit of the frame in that regard. But otherwise, for these kind of dry, fast, like champagne gravel type races, like the old course at Steamboat, I think of as kind of like the picture perfect all road bike kind of use case. A lot of the riding in Boulder, it's actually a bike that originally, I wouldn't say I didn't want, because like I love all the Mosaic bikes. They're all amazing. Like, of course I want them. They're all great. But it was one that I struggled to see how I would use on a day-to-day basis until I got it. And when I got it, it all just kind of clicked in my head. I was like, this makes perfect sense.
Where else have you enjoyed riding this bike?
It's a bike that I love to travel with. I've taken it on some pretty incredible trips. Last summer, I took it to the Dolomites, did a bunch of riding there. Took it to the Swiss Alps where I did a gravel race called Octopus Gravel that I won. That was super fun because I had to completely like take the bike apart, put some different parts on, and just kind of, I really maximized the versatility of it last summer. Like I raced it with a 1x, I raced it with 2x, I had a mountain bike derailleur, I had, road gearing, I had slick tires, I had knobby tires. Like I really had it in all sorts of different setups. And then earlier this year, I took it on a long, week-long bikepacking trip through the Alps that was stringing together a couple of UCI gravel races that I was doing over here. So that was just kind of another interesting use case where I was able to race it on the weekends and then, go from race to race with bags and everything strapped onto it.
Super cool. So really, it's like a tire clearance. So if that's up until a certain point where the course gets chunky enough and or muddy enough that you need bigger tire clearance.
Yeah.
How about the handling? Is your gravel bike noticeably slacker than the all-road bike, or is it close in terms of front end handling?
I would say they're all close, but they're not identical. I would say the all-road bike on the spectrum feels a little closer to the road bike, and that's purposeful. That's kind of the way that we designed it. Last year, I didn't actually have a road bike, and it was basically what I used for all of my road riding. And yeah, it's kind of like the way I describe it is really just a fat tire road bike. Like it feels like a road bike, it rides like a road bike, it's got road bike parts on it, but it just has that little bit of extra room for a little bit of extra tire. The gravel bike, however, feels like a kind of purpose built, really just a beast. Like it can handle a ton. Like the stuff that we were riding today at New in Girona was just pretty gnarly, lots of huge rocks and chunky stuff, and I had 48 millimeter knobbies on there, and I've been running it also recently with the dropper post, and it feels like a totally different beast. Like with that thing, I can do some really crazy gnarly stuff, and I wouldn't want to ride the all-road bike on that, but I can also go do 6 hours on the road on it, and I can shoot down some dirt paths here and there, and really, just sometimes take the go off the beaten path a little bit and like have that little sampling of adventure, I guess.
Sure. How about stretchy pants and clothes? You have a new Stars and Stripes mosaic kit to rock?
It is being produced as we speak. I think tomorrow they're finishing it, and then Thursday it goes in the mail, ideally overnight, I think, and then it comes on Friday. So it's all tight. It's all down to the wire. But the folks at Q365 are hard at work cranking it out, and they've been super awesome with the whole process. They jumped on it right away, and I pretty much woke up on Monday. It had already 6 or 8 different options to choose from with different renderings that they had cooked up really quickly. So yeah, those folks are awesome. They make amazing kit, and they've been really, really supportive through this whole process.
And that should be a nice bit of confidence to take into this next block of racing.
Yeah, definitely. No, I'm excited to fly the flag and represent. Definitely still bouncing back from the COVID that knocked me out over this last month or so, but starting to get back into it. I did the longest ride today. I think I've done in 7 weeks or something. It was like 5-hour ride. So starting to get back on track. And this is definitely a huge source of motivation to turn things around and really keep buckling down and putting in some long hours of training going into the final races.
Well, best of luck to you, sir. I'll look forward to following you from afar and hearing all about it.
Thank you so much, Ben. I really appreciate it.
Just like automobiles, bikes are pretty versatile. You can ride a mountain bike on pavement, you can ride a road bike on dirt. But just like with cars, specialization is a thing, right? Like an SUV is not a Jeep, is not a sports car. I would call a gravel bike like an SUV, and a new school all-road bike like a light SUV. What I'd like to leave you with here, if you're considering one bike to do road and gravel, 3 key things. Head tube angle, 72 or north. Tire clearance, if you're looking at an all-road bike to do gravel, of 40 mils. And then 3, what gearing is going to work well for you for where you live, on the dirt and on the road. Hopefully this has been helpful. If you have more questions, let me know in the comments below. I will do my best to answer them. Whether you want a gravel bike to act as a road bike or vice versa, just get out there and enjoy the ride.
And approaching the line right now, this is going to be your
Brendan!
national gravel champion. Let's give it up for this rider right here. Number 2, Brennan Wertz from Mosaic Cyclist.